Welcome back, pals, to Pen, Picture, and Chat. Today we're doing the season finale of season 3. It's super exciting. Today with us we have Rebecca LaFlure, who is a chalk artist. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. So just to start off pretty general, what is it like being a chalk artist in Chicago?
It's awesome. It's been a way for me to just really feel more ingrained in my community, both because I'm like literally just like kneeling on the sidewalk, drawing things on the Chicago pavement everywhere, but also just I get to meet so many people who walk by who I normally wouldn't have met, and just also meet other members of the Chicago art community. Chicago's a great city. I love it here, and I love it even more since I've become a chalk artist.
Yeah, so have you met any interesting people or interesting characters when you're out doing your art?
I mean, yeah, it's like a mix of like, there are always just like really kind people who are coming up and saying, "Oh, I love your work. Like, thank you for making me smile." A lot of kids who are interested. And then sometimes you might have like a random drunk dude who's like, "Hey, want to dance?" It's like makes no sense,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a mix, but keeps it interesting.
Do you have people that come and stop and like admire your work as you're working and comment on it?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah. A lot of people will stop, and at this point, particularly like in the area where I live, I've been chalking around there for a long enough time that people will recognize me and just be like, "Oh, hey, chalk of the town,"
That's adorable.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that sort of like so you do have a quite a following. Do you ever have people that are like, "Oh my gosh, it's you. I found you," or like, "I've spotted you"?
Yeah, I've had it happen a number of times, and it's always cool. Like one time I was just walking down the street and someone like yelled out their car like, "Chalk of the town, I love your work," and that's always
A drive by shouting. That's funny.
It's like, "Oh, hi."
Yeah.
And yeah, and there was, this is probably like skipping ahead a little bit, but I lost the fingers on my right hand, and there was one little boy who, his dad follows me on Instagram, and he had messaged me before and just mentioned like, "Hey, I have a child who has a hand difference. It's like cool to see you out there." And then I just randomly ran into them at the park, and I got to meet his son, and his son was like clearly like, just so happy to meet me, and just immediately so warm, and was like hugging on me and just saying he just loved my art. And that was a really awesome moment for me, for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's so special.
Yeah.
Just inspiring the children.
Yes.
the children of Chicago.
Yeah.
What were you drawing when he
I wasn't
visited?
even drawing anything. Yeah, they just recognized me. I was just sitting there at a picnic table with my daughter, so.
That's so special. So what inspired you to do chalk art?
Yeah, so it was during the pandemic, and I was at home, working from home like so many people, and then my daughter her daycare was closed, and so I was just trying to find a way to get her out of the house, and so we started chalking together a lot, and during the course of that, I figured out like, oh, hey, I really enjoy this.
Yeah.
It's an awesome creative outlet and good stress reliever, and I felt like I kind of had a knack for it. And so I started chalking a lot in front of my house and just around my general neighborhood, and I would get a lot of great reactions from the neighbors. And so neighbors started regularly coming by and wanted to see what I was going to chalk next, and it just sort of became a thing. And eventually one person suggested, "You should, start an Instagram and put your handle underneath all your artwork." And I ended up doing that. And so that's what I can put, Chalk of the Town 312. And so now every time I create some kind of chalk art, I'll put my Instagram handle underneath, and that way people can follow along on my chalk adventures. So, yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
Do you ever let your daughter like collaborate with you? Is she ever like there with you doing stuff?
Yeah, we do collaborate. She doesn't have like the patience that I do for a lot of like
She's 5, that makes sense.
Yeah, hour 2, like really getting into the details. She's like kind of gone, but But yeah, I do like to collaborate with her when I can. I'm trying to think of like some of the. There was one piece that I did a few months ago where I did a drawing of Chucky from Rugrats, and he was like, I did it where it was just like his behind, and he was chalking something, like holding a piece of chalk.
Yeah.
And then she chalked like her own design all
The
around.
thing that he was chalking?
Right.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, so just stuff like that. And then I also like to try to involve other kids and people in the community sometimes too. So recently, I did just some drawings at the park of some ghosts. And
Spooky.
I put, yeah. And then I put "Make Me Beautiful" next to it. And then I left a box of chalk. And then when I came back, like people had decorated the chalk, decorated the ghosts and created their own ghosts too. Like there was like a really long line of just other ghosts people had created next to it.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool. And then or sometimes too, I'll just do color me. I'll make an outline of a character and put color me next to it and leave some chalk. And then people will color in the character. And then a lot of times they'll create their own art too. And so I like doing that kind of stuff too. Yeah.
Wow. So a question that popped in my mind was, so I imagine that chalk art is a relatively like summer or maybe early fall to like late spring activity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find yourself chalking in the winter, or how do you do that, I guess?
I do. I chalk as long as like there's the ground is dry and there's no snow on the ground. I'll chalk.
Yeah.
I just dress accordingly. You know, I'll have on my puffy jacket and my boots and I'll go out there and chalk. I also am lucky to have a cement wall in my backyard. And so sometimes I'll be using that a lot in the winter just to keep up with it because it doesn't matter if there's snow on the ground. I'll just chalk on the wall. But yeah, I'll go outside and chalk in the winter.
Wow, a true Chicagoan.
Yeah.
Mad respect.
Well, I'm from Texas too, so.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what brought you to Chicago?
I came here to go to graduate school. I studied journalism at Northwestern for grad school. And, journalism was like my initial career. And so, yeah, that's what brought me here.
Mhm.
And I ended up meeting my husband and staying. And I love Chicago.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned your accident.
Mm-hmm.
Is your right hand your dominant hand, or?
Yeah, so my right hand is my dominant hand.
How has that affected your ability to work? How does that?
Well, when I initially lost the fingers on my right hand, I was definitely worried, like, how am I going to be able to handwrite? I wasn't sure if I would ever be able to do that. Thankfully, I was able to learn to handwrite with my right hand. I just do it a little differently. I hold the pencil a little bit differently, but I'm able to do it. And so I still write with my right hand. I still mainly draw with my right hand. And obviously certain things I just can't do with it. And so I will have to use my left hand.
Yeah.
With chalking, there's a lot of blending. And so I'll blend with the fingers on my left hand, but I'm usually still drawing with my right hand. Yeah.
So you mostly do sort of whimsical characters or like cartoon characters. Why is that your subject matter of choice?
Well, I'm a 90s kid and I like to chalk a lot of things that are just like nostalgic from my childhood. I think it's also because I think in my neighborhood too, there are a lot of young families. So by doing the nostalgic characters, it's one of those things where like the parents will recognize it from their childhood and get excited, but then their kids will also really like it too because it's like a fun, happy kids character essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think I just like using bright colors and I don't know, making people smile. I think, I mentioned to you before this that I'm a professional investigator as my day job. And so I deal with some pretty heavy subjects for that job. And so for my art, I tend to really lean towards things that make me happy and that I hope will make others happy.
So do you find, does your work or does that influence how you do your chalk art? Is it like, oh, today I've had like an exclusively just crazy rough day, I want to do something extra, like whimsical or extra. Does it ever affect you like that, I guess?
And it doesn't, I don't think it ever like really affects like what I draw necessarily. Like I have this, ideas will just come to me. And so when they come to me, I'll like, I have like a little like notes document on my phone and I'll log it. And so I kind of have like these running ideas in my head of like, oh, next time I have a moment, like I want to chalk that kind of thing. But I have had days where I'm just like really stressed out and I'm just like, I need a chalk later today because I just need to get my mind off of things. And so there definitely have been moments like that.
Yeah. Before you mentioned that you've had an opportunity, maybe it was even before the interview started, you mentioned that you've had an opportunity to collaborate or meet other artists. How do you find yourself collaborating with other people or meeting other people?
Well, a lot of it has just been through like social media, which is really great. And like yesterday, there's this guy named Andrew Rose who is a chalk artist in Uptown, and he's put together this chalk art group or chalk art meetup. And so every couple of weeks, like a group of artists will meet up and just chalk up a certain location. And so yesterday, a bunch of us met up and chalked outside of a restaurant in Roscoe Village and covered the streets in like fun Halloween stuff. And
Wow.
yeah, so that's been a cool way to connect. There's another artist called Storm Print City, and he does art on all like manhole covers.
Oh, cool.
And so we've collaborated before. We did like a Ms. Pac-Man theme where I chalked Ms. Pac-Man and I did like a bunch of dots and like little mini fruits, around leading up to like this brewery. And then he decorated the manhole cover with like one of the little ghosts. And so, yeah, it's fun doing collaborations like that.
Yeah. Do you ever get commissioned to do chalk art?
Yeah, I do get commissioned. It's been like a mix of like birthday parties. Some things are like more serious where it's like, oh, I have a friend who's battling cancer and I want, just something to cheer her up. And so I've done stuff like that just to cheer up a friend who's in need of cheering up. I've done like various school events. So yeah, it's become like my little side hustle.
Yeah. So you've been paid for your work then and stuff?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Good for you. So being a Chicago artist, I know your subject matter is like primarily like lighthearted and like children's cartoons and things. Do you ever find yourself drawing inspiration from the city itself?
Yeah, well, I was a featured artist at this chalk festival in Chicago called Chalk Howard Street a couple of months ago, and the theme was Chicago. And so I was able to merge both my love for Chicago and just like the more like fun, nostalgic stuff. And so I did a piece of the Magic School Bus. And so I did Magic School Bus, but then like this bus was like decorated with all these like, iconic Chicago symbols, like various sports teams and food and, buildings, stuff like that. And then I had Miss Frizzle there, and she was wearing like a dress with the Chicago flag design. So that was a lot of fun.
That is so fun. So you've done the Chalk Howard Street. What other events have you done in the city?
I'm trying to, I do a lot of, let's see, what did I do recently? I've done like various like music festivals. And a lot of times too, like I'm not even necessarily invited. I just kind of show up.
Yeah.
Like as I've gotten more, a bigger following, people like invite me to these kinds of things. But a lot of times I have just like shown like, oh, I know there's this cool event going on, so I'll just show up and act like I'm supposed to be there and start chalking.
Yeah.
I will say like I've never gotten a bad reaction to chalking ever. Which I see some videos on TikTok of like, I don't know, like neighbors getting mad at someone for drawing on the sidewalk or whatever. But I know like there's someone I followed in Texas who like got arrested for chalking on a government property or so. I don't know. It wasn't even anything bad.
That's crazy.
But yeah, I've been lucky in that like everyone has just been positive. Anytime they see it, like people just seem to genuinely enjoy it. And so I really love it. Makes me want to continue to do it.
Yeah. What's the biggest piece you've ever done?
I mean, that's the thing is like there are definitely artists who do much more like large scale pieces. I've done some like, I guess, somewhat large scale pieces like the, Chalk Howard Street would have been a little bit bigger than what I would normally do. But most of my stuff does tend to be on like, I would say more small scale, like, like I'm trying to fit something in on a random like urban street. I don't necessarily have like a huge driveway, and plus like this is stuff that I'm like fitting into my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
So it's really just like, oh, like do I have a couple hours to chalk something real quick over here? So I rarely have time, I guess, to like really focus on like a large scale thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
How long does it take you on average to complete a piece?
I'd say typically it's like an hour and a half to 2 hours.
So that's like pretty quick. I would assume it seems like it.
Yeah. So like that's like what like an average piece would be, and then like something a little bigger would be like 3 or 4 hours. Chalk Howard Street took even longer than that. That was also just complicated for me too, because I'm used to like this isn't very interesting, but I'm just used to like smooth like sidewalk pavement, and in Chalk Howard Street it was like the literal like street.
Oh, it was the road.
Like it was like the road, and so just the surface was difficult for me. I guess it took me longer to do everything with that surface. A lot of people were painting, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna chalk.
Yeah. Commitment.
Yeah.
Is that the most detailed piece you've ever done? If not, then what is, I guess, is a good...
I don't know what my like most detailed piece would have to be. I'd have to like go back and look at them.
Look on the Instagram, do some scrolling. That's really cool. So is there anything that you find challenging, uniquely challenging about the work that you do, just for people that might be watching?
I mean, you can't, I guess one thing that's unique about chalk art, and it could be a plus or a minus, is that it is temporary. So, you can't get too attached to any one piece.
Yeah.
Especially, like, I mean, I've definitely just gotten rained on halfway through, finishing, or right when I finish, it just starts raining.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, you can't get too attached to anything. On the plus side, though, like, I kind of, it's kind of less pressure in a way too. Like you're not putting anything permanent on the street. It's like it lets you be able to just like try out new things, and you don't like it, it'll wash away.
Yeah. Have you ever like drawn a piece and then come back and been like, oh wow, that's still there? Ever?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm sure it has. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah. It's just not like super memorable. I just was curious if it's like, oh, you did one like on a wall under a bridge or something, and you came back like 3 months later and you're like, whoa, it's still there. Like, I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, like, they do tend to like wash away pretty quickly, once the rain comes. Sometimes like there will be like some remnants still there for a while, but yeah.
Have you had anyone that's been inspired by your work to do chalk art, that's like communicated to you about that and been like, hey, I found this really cool, I have started doing this too?
People have reached out to me on Instagram and just like asked me like, hey, like how did you get started, and just like asking for advice because they wanted to do something similar in their city. So yeah, I have seen that, and that's always cool. Or sometimes I see just random people and they're like, oh, I saw you like talking about like chalk brands on Instagram. And so I went out and bought it. And yeah, you're right. It's good chalk. So
What is the good chalk?
I always recommend this it's prang chalk. And it's just particularly very bright.
Okay, just
color.
like the
Yeah.
what is the
that.
word I'm trying to think of? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. I'm trying to think of a word.
Yeah. It's,
Cool.
I know now I'm just like completely blanking.
Yeah. There's a word that I'm looking for.
there is.
It's gone.
Yeah.
That's cool though. Okay.
Yeah. And then I also tell people too that if a key to chalking that I learned and like it really improved my pieces is just like rubbing the chalk into the cement. Like that's what gives it that smooth look, like really blending it. Because a lot of times people are just like, how do you get it looking so like bold and like smooth? And it's really just all blending. So,
yeah. And you just use your fingers for that?
Yeah.
Does that ever like rub away your fingers? Like, you know,
I
like,
think I must. I mean, I don't feel it, but I must have calluses on my fingertips because I used to get really beat up on my fingertips and I don't anymore. But yeah, I have made myself bleed several times.
Oh wow, that's chalk art's intense.
I know. But yeah, it's been a while since that's happened. So
Yeah.
I feel like I must have strong fingers now. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, did you ever draw before you started doing chalk art? Did you ever consider yourself like an artist before this?
So I used to like art a lot as a kid. Like I always liked putting together like I would make like my own comics or, you know, caricatures and stuff like that, but it's just not anything I ever got into as an adult until I discovered chalk art in 2020. So yeah, like it was definitely a totally rediscovering like a childhood passion, you know, in 2020. And like I said, like about the accident, like so growing up, I liked art, and then I just kind of fell out of it, you know, when I was a teenager and young adult. And then when I was 21, in 2007, I got into this car accident where I lost the fingers on my right hand. And so that's when I went through the period where I was like, oh, wow, like, am I ever going to even be able to handwrite again? I wasn't even thinking about like creating any kind of art with my hands. And so that was like a whole process of just adapting to life without fingers and learning how to do things differently. And also just like coming to terms with it mentally too, because when it first happened to me, I always wore a prosthetic on my right hand because I was just like afraid of having this hand out in the open, you know. I had like a very realistic prosthetic to where like you would never know, you know, unless you like were really paying attention. And so there was a whole process of me just both adapting physically, but then coming to terms with like, you know what, I don't even need this prosthetic. I can do more without it. And, you know, I'm proud of how far I've come, and I'm proud of my hand. So yeah. And then so in 2020, when I rediscovered this, it made it particularly special. Just because it was like, wow, like I've really come a long way to like not knowing if I was going to be able to use this hand at all, to like now I'm becoming known for like something that I'm creating with my hands. Like it was just a really cool thing for me.
That is incredible that like you're an amazing chalk artist and you like happen to have this thing with your hand, and it's like that you're already like, it's not, you know, it's not like, oh, I have this and like it's because of this and all that. Like you're just a really great chalk artist and you happen to have like some missing fingers.
Yeah,
it's pretty badass is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, no, it's true. I wanted to ask you, so you talked about not really being into art as a child and then discovering chalk art and really embracing it. Would you ever consider doing like a different type of art? Not that you would ever have to, of course, because you're really killing it as a chalk artist, but is there anything else that just sort of interests you that you want to dabble in?
I don't know. I'm sure I'm sure at some point I will like to figure out different mediums. With chalk art, I think if I were to dabble in anything else, it would still be street art related.
Mm-hmm.
I just really like street art in general. I like the fact that, I love creating and being able to create, but I also just like the whole concept of street art and the fact that I'm out there in the community. I'm getting to meet people. You have like an instant audience for your work. And I like that it's just so accessible to everyone. Like anyone can see it, just walking down the street. And so I think if I were to dabble with anything, it would maybe be doing like painting murals or something like that. Something I would like to try.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any like specific goals or anything? And like, I mean, we're almost at the end of the year. Do you have anything like, 2024, I want to do this thing?
I don't know if I have anything specific for the end of the year. I have like ideas of like things that I think would be cool if like I ever had the time, I have like so many ideas in my head, and it's just hard like balancing light, which I'm sure so many people feel the same way, where it's like I have my real job and I'm a mom, and I also want to have like some kind of social life, pay attention to my husband sometimes, like all that kind of stuff.
Sometimes.
And so yeah, so like but I've thought about maybe it would be cool to like do some like book illustrating, but it would all be with like chalk. So like coming up with like a character and a story, because I have a writing background too, and so like maybe writing a children's book and then I illustrate it all with chalk art.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool.
That is super cool. Do you have creative writing experience?
Not creative writing, but like I have a journalism background. I worked as a newspaper reporter, and so I have experience like writing in that way.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So that would be.
Oh, that would be a really cool thing, especially for your daughter. I imagine that she would love that.
Yeah, I think she would.
Wow. So I know I talked about like talking about the people that have met with you on the sidewalk while you've been working.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any maybe less than positive interactions with people? What's the, like, you talked about like the drunk guy or whatever, like, we've talked about pros, but have there been any sort of cons with having the people out with you?
I've tried to, I mean, like, honestly, like the drunk guy is probably like the worst that it gets. There was one time, and this wasn't even directed at me, but it's like a literal like fight broke out right next to me when I was just chalking outside the library, and so I had to like scream at people to like get away from each other. And so sometimes you just come across those kind of things like in the city life, like you're out there, you're just like at a bus stop or whatever, and sometimes something might happen around you. But it was fun. Well, I guess kind of funny. Like at the end of it, like these people were like screaming at each other, and then like one left, and then she like stopped. She's like, "Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know, you could do that with chalk." And she was just like complimenting me on the chalk art after this like very like crazy interaction. But
you're like, thank you.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, thanks. I don't know.
Have you ever had to like leave a piece unfinished before?
Oh, because I
mean, yeah, or like you're like, oh, because you can't take it with you, it's out there.
No, I've never had to like leave a piece because just sorry, something like crazy happened. No.
Okay.
No, I still finished my piece during that time.
Yeah.
So,
what was the piece? I'm just curious now.
Oh, this is like so silly. It was like, like to give a mouse a cookie.
Yeah.
I was like just like the little mouse with his cookie outside of the library. Like it was like a very
that's cute.
It was a very wholesome thing that I was doing.
That is really adorable.
Yeah, it was just like a bunch. I think they're probably like high school kids or something. They got into altercation.
Do you? They were kids. Oh, for some. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, they might have been young adults. They were younger, probably like older teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah. So we know that you do sort of like cartoons or like children's characters. What are some that you've done? We talked a little bit about it, but some others that you haven't mentioned.
Oh, like characters I've done. I like to do a lot of characters where, it's like a fun, nostalgic thing, but I like to like put my own spin on it or like try to be clever, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I've done things like I did like the Pink Panther, but I did him looking all like he had like a mohawk and he was looking all punk rock. And so and then I wrote like Punk Panther next to him.
Amazing.
I'm trying to think. Oh, like the other day I did like a mashup of Chucky from Rugrats and then like the Chucky doll. So it was like, spooky Chucky for Halloween. I did a mashup of do you know like Cat Dog?
Cat Dog.
So yeah, a mashup of Cat Dog and Ren and Stimpy.
Okay.
So it was like Ren and Stimpy, but they were kind of merged together like Cat Dog.
Yeah. That's cool.
So yeah, I like to just like think of like random. I've done a number of Peppa puns, Peppa Pig.
Yeah.
So I did like Red Hot Chili Peppa, which is like Peppa and like as like a literal like chili pepper. Yeah. I did Salt and Peppa, which is her and like salt and pepper shakers. So
where do you come up with these puns? Just do?
Yeah, it's a mix of that, and my husband helps me too sometimes.
That's awesome.
My husband actually works for the Onion, and he like he was like laughing because he said the Peppa puns came up during like one of their meetings recently because like I guess someone came up with like a silly joke having to do with Peppa, and he's like, oh, my wife's already done that with her chalk art, So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you've been featured on a lot of like different news sites and stuff like that, in the Chicago Sun-Times and everything. Talking about your Instagram and stuff, have you gained like a lot of followers and stuff through that?
I'd say a good amount. I mean, I'd always like more, but
oh yeah.
Yeah. But yes, yeah, I've been really surprised by just like the amount of people who have shown interest in my story, and the Chicago Sun-Times thing was really cool. And actually the reporter who did that story, he's someone who's like yelled out of the car. Like the other day I was out chalking and I like heard he's like, hey, chocolate or whatever, and I look up and it was him. But
yeah.
But yeah, and I've been on a number of TV shows, or not like TV segments, I guess. So yeah, that's been cool. I've also gotten a decent following on the Nextdoor app.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, people seem to like when I post my work on there, which I'll do occasionally. I think it's because like there's just so much negative stuff on there.
Yeah, they're like, oh, something nice.
Yeah, and that's basically what people see. They're like, oh wow, great. But
I've never thought of Nextdoor being like an actual like social media source. To me, it's such like a news. Like I have it. I don't really go on it because of all the negativity. But yeah, that's such an interesting. Makes sense that you'd be on there because you are out directly in the neighborhood and interacting with the neighborhood. But yeah,
that's probably where I've gotten like some of my most like interactions have been on Nextdoor. Like I've gotten a lot of feedback from there. And for a while I was doing also like the Chicago subreddit on Reddit. And so that was like another thing that I would do.
Do you think that your journalism background has helped you in any way with your like social media skills or anything?
I think like I think probably. I mean, one of the things we were learning in journalism school was we're kind of going through the media was going through like this transition of like Twitter being introduced and Facebook, and journalists now like having to brand themselves. And so I think having to have like I think like that, all of that helped me prepare me for this, like creating, I guess, I don't want to say that I'm a brand, but I kind of am, like I'm creating a brand for myself and figuring out a way to tell my story and come up with content and just like storytelling in general. Yeah, I think like journalism definitely helped with all of that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You have TikTok as well, you said?
TikTok, but that's like only for my toys.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. I forgot that was before. That was pre-interview question. I guess for context. So you collect 80s and 90s toys.
Yeah, I collect 80s and 90s toys, and so I started a TikTok for that like a year ago.
Yeah.
And that I have way more followers on that than I do on Instagram. Yeah.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it's kind of funny because like I'm more into the art, and like it obviously is like way more effort.
Yeah.
But then like on TikTok, it's like very easy. I'm just like, hey guys, remember this? You know, and then
and people are like, heck yeah.
Yes, like I do. And so it's been like way easier to grow a following for that than it has been.
Yeah.
For chalk art.
How so? Do you only exclusively do the 80s and 90s toys on TikTok?
Yeah, I've kind of like separated them because I'm like, this is all I can handle right now. So like I have Instagram for this and my TikTok for my vintage toys.
Would you ever do TikTok for your chalk?
I've thought about it, but just at this point, I'm like, my mind can't handle it right now.
Would you ever consider leaning more, like if you did get like 1 million followers or something wild for your chalk art on Instagram, would you consider doing it like more like almost full time if you were getting, you know, like is that something that you would consider doing if it became available?
I mean, yeah, it would have to be like pretty.
Yeah. You have to be at the Met Gala, like doing some chalk art.
But yes, I mean, I guess that would be cool, but I don't know. I like my day job.
Yeah.
But yes, I think if I were handed $1 million a year to be a chalk artist, yes, I would take it.
I guess that would be. That's really cool. So, have you done anything directly with, like, have you actually ever partnered with any, like either like the city directly or like any chambers of commerce to do anything like directly connected with the city at all? I'm
sure. Well, like Chalk Howard Street was like in partnership with like the chambers and stuff like that. Oh, well, this was something like in North Center, like the neighborhood North Center in Chicago, like their community, they put out like an annual community guide every year that kind of advertises their businesses, and they asked me to be on the cover. And so last year I got to create like the cover piece, and they had like a little thing about me in there. So that was cool.
That is really cool. So what was the piece that you did for it?
It was Celebrate North Center was the theme, and so it was just like and I had to create my own character because they can't have like, you know, can't be trademarked characters.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so I created just like a character of a girl wearing a North Center shirt being like, yay, and she had balloons all around her and confetti. That
sounds great. Yeah. Who doesn't love balloons and confetti?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I think that we might have time for one more question. Okay. I believe. So my final question for you is, I know I just kind of talked about like bigger future goals. Do you have anything like just more immediately coming up that you're like, man, I want to push myself. I want to make something new, something different, or something bigger, something directly in the future that you want to work on? Like character wise or something, like something to work on. What are you working on next, I guess?
Well, probably I get upcoming. I want to do something big for like the holiday season. Usually historically I've done like a big walkway in front of my house where I like fill it up with like the Peanuts Christmas characters and stuff like that. And so I want to do something really fun for the holidays, something bigger, I think, for that.
That's perfect. And we can totally, like, when you do that, you post on social, we'll share it.
Okay, awesome.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. Especially since this is a December episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Rebecca, and sharing all of your chalk wisdom. This has been amazing. All right, everybody, that concludes season 3. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you season 4.